I mean, if you want to overthrow a totalitarian regime, human instinct really just tells you to hit them with the biggest hammer you can possibly find.
Right, yeah, like sanctions, blockades.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sanctions, a total economic blockade, maybe even outright war.
It's the intuitive response.
It is.
Yeah.
But what if the deadliest weapon you could actually use against a deeply entrenched dictatorship isn't a bomb or, a sweeping treaty?
Mm-hmm.
What if the ultimate weapon is just like frustrating, agonizingly slow bureaucracy?
It sounds absolutely absurd on its face, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, it sounds like a joke.
It does, because we are so conditioned to view bureaucratic delay as a failure of leadership, like a sign of weakness.
It's kicking the can down the road.
Exactly. But when you examine the structural vulnerabilities of a regime that survives entirely on crisis and chaos, it's different.
Right.
Weaponized boredom, like a deliberate, highly structured delay, can actually be the exact mechanism that causes their whole foundation to rot from the inside out.
Okay, so you're probably listening to this deep dive right now and thinking that stalling just sounds like cowardly diplomacy.
Sure, yeah.
But to explain why it's actually this incredibly lethal strategy, I want you to imagine just for a second that you live in a house where the fire alarm is blaring.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right, like day and night. It literally never stops.
Yeah, just constant noise.
Constant. And eventually, you don't even look for the fire anymore. You just exist in this constant state of high alert panic. You're just waiting for the walls to burn down.
Because your brain is completely hijacked by the noise.
Exactly.
And the psychological term for that is cognitive narrowing.
Cognitive narrowing.
Right. Under extreme, persistent stress, your peripheral vision literally and metaphorically shrinks.
Wow.
You lose the ability to think strategically. You can't plan for tomorrow or even organize with your neighbors because you are entirely consumed by the overwhelming stimuli of that immediate alarm.
And honestly, if you've glanced at a news feed any time in the last few weeks, you know that is exactly what the geopolitical media landscape feels like right now.
It's deafening.
It is. We are looking at a barrage of headlines from June 2026, specifically regarding the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz.
The ultimate global fire alarm.
The ultimate fire alarm. Every single notification on your phone is screaming that we are headed for either this catastrophic deadlock that crashes the global economy,
or a full-blown regional war.
right, a totally catastrophic war.
And the prevailing narrative being pushed across almost every platform insists that we are already locked in.
Like it's inevitable.
Yeah, that an inevitable worst-case scenario is already happening. The public is just experiencing a profound sensory overload of brinkmanship right now.
But what if that alarm is actually masking the sound of the fire truck pulling up?
That's the real question.
Today we are taking a deep dive into a profoundly counterintuitive argument that flips this entire crisis completely on its head.
It really does.
We're pulling from this deeply fascinating source. It's a blog post from a platform called Barackface, which is written by an author named Paramendra.
Dated June 17th, 2026.
Right. And the title alone just pivots violently away from the panic. It's called The Silver Lining in the Strait: Why This Moment May Be the Best Path Forward for Iran.
And the core proposition the author puts forward here is jarring. It really is.
It is. I mean, silver lining in this crisis.
I know. Paramendra is looking at this terrifying high-stakes flashpoint in the Middle East and arguing that it is not a trap.
Right.
He's saying it might actually be the most promising off-ramp available for long-term regional peace, and crucially for Iranian democracy.
Which is a massive claim.
Huge. But to understand why, we basically have to completely dismantle and rebuild how we think about time, leverage, and conflict.
Well, let's unpack the environment this author is writing in first, I think. Because before he even introduces his solution, he issues this really sharp critique of the noise we are all consuming.
Yeah, the media ecosystem.
Yeah. The author points out that while free speech is obviously the undisputed cornerstone of open societies, it has this built-in vulnerability.
Right, because it protects everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It protects and amplifies absolute nonsense right alongside clear-eyed analysis.
It is such an essential critique of our modern information ecosystem.
Yeah.
The author is explicitly pointing out that the public commentary framing the Strait of Hormuz situation as an inevitable escalation isn't necessarily happening because war is guaranteed.
Right. It's the algorithms.
Exactly. It is happening because of structural incentives. Modern media, algorithms, political commentary, they actively reward urgency, terror, and drama.
I mean, doom gets clicks.
Always.
If I'm scrolling through my feed, a headline reading, "Impending World War in the Gulf" is going to make my thumb stop a whole lot faster than diplomats scheduled another plenary session for next Tuesday.
Sad but true.
But I do find myself questioning the author's underlying motive here a little bit.
Oh, how so?
Well, is Paramendra just being a contrarian for the sake of it?
I see what you mean.
Because it's a really common tactic online, you know? When everyone zigzags into panic, you zag into optimism just to stand out.
To get those contrarian clicks.
Yeah. So is there actually a fundamental flaw in how we are consuming this specific crisis?
There is a deep flaw, actually, and the author addresses it head on.
Okay.
They argue that while free speech rightly protects the hyperventilation, it creates a moral imperative that, quote, clearer-eyed analysis receive a hearing.
Interesting.
The flaw in consuming only the high-stakes drama is that you literally become blind to leverage.
You just miss the subtleties.
Exactly. You start viewing every single diplomatic maneuver as a surrender.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
And to see how saturated the panic is, we only have to look at the sidebar of news items captured on the very day this blog post was published, June 17th, 2026.
Oh, man, those sidebars are just a perfect time capsule of the chaos.
They really are.
Yeah, the New York Times running live, minute-by-minute updates on an quote-unquote Iran war.
Right next to quotes from Donald Trump.
Yeah, with Donald Trump quoted as hoping to put the war in the rearview mirror.
And then the tech headlines, too.
Yeah, you have headlines about employees at Anthropic, the AI company, accusing the Trump administration of targeting them.
And don't forget the story about the visa expiration of the Iranian World Cup footballer.
Oh, Mehdi Torabi.
Yes.
Let's actually pause on that one for a second, because a World Cup player in 2026 getting his visa pulled after just one game feels incredibly specific.
It does. It seems random at first glance.
Right. And the sidebar notes he is linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, and that he attended pro-government rallies after U.S.-Israel strikes.
Right.
But for you, the listener, trying to understand the stakes here, why does an athlete's visa matter in the grand scheme of a military standoff?
That is a great question. It matters because it demonstrates how thoroughly the geopolitical conflict has bled into every conceivable cultural pore.
Right, it's everywhere.
The IRGC isn't just some military branch. It is a sprawling economic and political mafia.
They control everything.
They control massive sectors of Iranian life, including sports. So pulling Torabi's visa isn't just a bureaucratic hiccup.
It's intentional.
Highly intentional. It is a highly targeted, highly public micro-sanction.
A micro-sanction. I like that phrase.
Yeah, it shows the listener that the international community is attempting to surgically isolate the regime's loyalists on the global stage, even in arenas that are supposed to be completely apolitical, like the World Cup.
Wow. And right next to that microdrama, you have these massive macro headlines about NATO's permanent state of crisis.
Yep.
Debates over potential quick economic rebounds and Japan adopting new carbon reduction targets.
It's a lot.
The world is spinning at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and every single issue feels absolutely existential.
Which is exactly the author's point.
Right.
In a hypersaturated, high-stakes environment where everyone is demanding immediate resolution, Paramendra is carving out space for a cooler assessment.
Taking a breath.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is arguing that if the international community can just resist the urge to smash the panic button, we are not looking at a cliff.
Oh.
We're actually looking at a runway.
A runway. So if we aren't dropping bombs, and we aren't signing some magical grand bargain peace treaty overnight on a manicured lawn somewhere.
Which is what everyone wants.
Right. But if we aren't doing that, what does this runway actually look like? Because the blueprint the author lays out is, frankly, shockingly unglamorous.
It is incredibly unglamorous. The optimal scenario starts with a purely pragmatic mechanical step.
Okay, what is it?
The Strait of Hormuz must be reopened to shipping immediately.
Just clear the water.
Yes. The primary bottleneck choking global commerce has to be cleared. But, and here's the pivot, once the ships are moving, rather than sprinting toward a final, comprehensive resolution, negotiations begin.
And they stretch out.
Right. Direct or indirect negotiations begin in earnest, and they are explicitly designed to stretch over many months.
The text lays out the math of this negotiation timeline, and it is highly structured. Right?
Very specific.
Yeah, you don't just sit down and talk forever. You start with an initial 2-month window.
Right.
Then you follow that with 2 separate conditional extensions of 2 months each.
Exactly.
So you're looking at 3 distinct phases, totaling roughly 6 months.
2 plus 2 plus 2. It is a very specific architectural choice for a diplomatic process.
Okay, I have to push back hard on this structure, though.
Go for it.
When I look at a 2+2+2 timeline, I immediately think of a sports team that's up by 1 point with 5 minutes left on the clock.
Ah, the stall tactic.
Right. They just start passing the ball back and forth to run out the clock.
No, taking no risks.
Exactly. So if you just stall for half a year, aren't you merely kicking a live grenade down the road?
I see the logic. Yeah.
I mean, how does sitting in a sterile conference room in Geneva or Muscat for 6 months actually dismantle a geopolitical powder keg?
If the goal were merely to avoid a fight today, you would be absolutely right. It would just be a stall. But the author anticipates this exact skepticism. The text explicitly states, quote, "This is not delay for delay's sake. It is time bought for something far more consequential than another temporary truce."
So there's a hidden motive.
Yes. The genius of the 2+2+2 structure is that it provides what the author calls breathing room without allowing for indefinite drift.
Okay, let's drill into the mechanics of that. Why does a 6-month block of time fail where 3 2-month windows succeed? Because 6 months is 6 months, right?
Think about the psychology of leverage here.
Okay.
If you sign a quick face-saving deal to end the crisis immediately, you breathe new life into a faltering authoritarian system.
Because they look strong.
Right. The regime's leaders go back to Tehran, they declare a massive PR victory, and they claim they forced the entire world to back down.
Okay.
Conversely, if you agree to an unstructured, open-ended negotiation process like just saying, we'll talk until it's fixed, the international media just gets bored.
The spotlight fades.
The spotlight fades, and the regime goes right back to secretly enriching uranium or funding proxies in the shadows.
Oh. So the rolling 2-month deadlines function like a psychological treadmill.
A psychological treadmill,
And then
exactly.
Day 45 of a 60-day window hits, and suddenly the diplomats have to scramble.
Yep, the pressure spikes.
The media focus returns. The regime's negotiators have to sweat and produce some kind of minor concession just to get the next 2-month extension.
Precisely the mechanism. You are denying the regime the finality they need to declare victory,
Wow.
while simultaneously denying them the crisis they need to justify their iron grip at home.
That's fascinating.
By stringing it out in conditional phases, you lock them into a state of relentless bureaucratic limbo while the entire globe watches their every single move.
They can't hide.
No, they can't. It is a slow-acting pressure test that their internal systems are simply not designed to survive.
Okay, to really understand why a 6-month bureaucratic limbo is lethal to the Iranian regime, we have to look backward for a minute.
Yeah, historical context is crucial.
We have to look at the track record of what has actually been tried over the last few decades and failed.
And the author brings a very stark reality check to the table here.
Yeah, he does.
The text points out that Iran's regime has proven incredibly stubbornly resilient against external pressure and military confrontation.
Right. I mean, decades of crippling economic sanctions, total political isolation, covert sabotage, occasional targeted military strikes.
All of it.
It's like hitting a reinforced brick wall with a hammer. The wall chips, but it never falls over.
And I want to highlight the geopolitical context the author is operating within here because the impartiality of this observation is so critical.
The impartiality, right. Let's look at that.
If we look back at the sidebars of this blog post, we see headlines about Donald Trump angrily defending his own Iran deal.
Presumably his withdrawal from the JCPOA.
Exactly, his withdrawal and his maximum pressure campaign. And in the same breath, he's belittling the original deal signed by Barack Obama.
Right. And yet, right at the top of the page, the author's own bio proudly states, I was Barack Obama's first full-time volunteer in New York City.
Which tells us we have a deeply polarized American political backdrop.
It's super polarized.
And an author who clearly has personal political leanings. Yet the strategic takeaway presented in the text is entirely impartial regarding the failures of American foreign policy.
He's calling out everyone.
Yeah. Whether it is the left's approach of complex diplomatic sanctions and multilateral treaties, or the right's approach of unilateral maximum pressure and military posturing.
None of it worked.
Right. The author's fundamental point stands. External solutions inherently fail to dislodge this specific regime.
Let's take the hammer and brick wall analogy a step further then.
Okay.
Because human nature suggests that if you are hitting a wall for 30 years and it isn't breaking, you just need to go find a bigger hammer.
Hit it harder.
Yeah. If a blockade doesn't work, Why not a massive military strike? Why does the author argue that war, which is the biggest external hammer of all, is actually the worst possible option?
Because of how totalitarian structures absorb and metabolize kinetic impact.
Metabolize impact. What does that mean?
Well, the author warns that another Middle Eastern war might feel emotionally satisfying to frustrated observers in the West.
Emotionally satisfying.
Right. It provides the illusion of decisive action, like we're finally doing something.
Yeah, I get that.
But history proves that applying a larger hammer to this particular wall doesn't break it. The impact actually compresses and strengthens the mortar holding the bricks together.
Emotionally satisfying is such a dangerous trap in foreign policy.
It really is.
But walk me through the mortar analogy. How does a bombing campaign actually strengthen a dictator?
Through the rally around the flag effect.
Ah.
Sudden crises, especially foreign military attacks, offer a lifeline to deeply unpopular leadership.
Because everyone gets scared?
And it instantly provides the regime with an external enemy to blame for every single internal failure.
Well, wow.
So if the power grid fails, they don't have to take the blame. They blame the foreign bombs. If food prices skyrocket, they blame the foreign blockade. A war unifies a fractured populace behind the very regime you are trying to weaken.
Because survival takes precedence over revolution.
Exactly. When bombs are falling, people aren't thinking about democracy, they're thinking about not dying.
So the external hammer guarantees the regime's survival.
Without a doubt.
Which brings us to the core of Paramender's argument. If you cannot knock the wall down from the outside, the foundation has to crumble from within.
The author's ultimate conviction is stated plainly here. Democracy must be carried by Iranians themselves.
It has to be internal.
Yes. The true existential threat to the regime is internal momentum, fueled by a combination of domestic discontent and organized opposition.
And the text highlights a very specific dual-engine mechanism for this internal momentum.
Right.
On one side, you have the courageous activists, the labor unions, and everyday citizens protesting inside the country.
Putting their lives on the line.
Exactly. And on the other side, you have the Iranian diaspora. And I really want to dig into that because the diaspora piece feels like the linchpin of this whole thing.
It absolutely is the linchpin. The author explicitly states that the diaspora represents the most legitimate and sustainable force for change.
Interesting.
It isn't just about people being angry inside the borders. It is about the diaspora acting as an international ecosystem of resistance.
Okay, but what does an ecosystem of resistance actually look like in practice?
It's multifaceted.
I mean, for a listener trying to visualize this, how does an Iranian expat living in Toronto or Paris actually threaten a cleric in Tehran?
It happens through resource allocation and technological bridging.
Okay, break that down.
Sure. So the diaspora has access to hard currency, right?
Right.
Which can be smuggled or creatively routed to support striking workers inside Iran who aren't getting their paychecks.
Oh, to keep the strikes going.
Exactly. And they have the technical expertise to set up shadow servers and virtual private networks to bypass the regime's internet blackouts.
So the truth gets out.
Yes, ensuring that videos of protests actually reach the global media.
Wow.
They act as a shadow diplomatic corps, too, lobbying foreign parliaments to sanction specific human rights abusers rather than blanketing the whole country in embargoes.
Micro-sanctions again.
Right. They provide the oxygen that keeps the internal fire burning.
I love that oxygen analogy. It's like a seed that needs the right climate to grow, you know.
Exactly.
The internal resistance is the seed, and the diaspora provides the water and sunlight.
A perfect way to look at it.
But here is where my brain gets a little tangled by the logic of the source material.
Oh, where's the tangle?
Well, the very first step of this 6-month blueprint was to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping, right?
Correct. The immediate clearing of the commercial bottleneck.
Which, as the text notes, provides immediate economic relief.
Right. It lowers insurance premiums for cargo ships.
It allowed oil to flow.
It eases the immediate economic pain inside Iran.
But wait, if the ultimate goal is to fuel domestic discontent so the people overthrow the regime, doesn't a stabilizing economy make a population less likely to risk their lives protesting?
Oh, I see.
If you ease the economic pain by opening the strait, aren't you starving that seed of the anger it needs to grow?
That is a highly logical pushback. It really is. And it gets right to the heart of the paradox the author is exploring here.
Okay.
But the author argues that easing the immediate acute pain of a blocked shipping lane is entirely different from curing the underlying systemic disease. The text points out that reopened shipping lanes do absolutely nothing to solve the deep structural failures of the regime.
It's like a doctor giving a patient a strong painkiller for a severely broken leg.
Yes.
Yes, it hurts less today, but you still can't walk, the bone is still jagged, and literally everyone knows you still need major surgery.
That is a perfect translation of the concept.
Thanks.
The systemic corruption, the funneling of national wealth to proxy militias abroad, the brutal domestic repression, the crumbling infrastructure.
None of that is fixed.
Exactly. None of that is fixed just because a few cargo ships are allowed to pass through a strait.
Right.
Furthermore, by locking the regime into these extended, phased negotiations, the international community ensures the spotlight never wavers.
And as we discussed with the hammer analogy earlier, avoiding a military confrontation prevents the regime from using a war to distract from that broken leg.
Which brings us to what might be the actual psychological masterstroke of this entire strategy.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
The author is fundamentally advocating for the weaponization of normalcy.
The weaponization of normalcy. Let's really spend some time here, because that phrasing is just brilliant.
It is.
How do prolonged, boring negotiations actually hurt a dictatorship?
By stretching their repressive apparatus dangerously thin and putting their governance under a microscopic lens.
Give me an example.
Think about a middle manager within the IRGC during a period of relative normalcy.
Okay, a guy with a desk and a uniform.
Right. When the strait was blocked and war seemed imminent, that manager could justify any failure, any brutal crackdown, with the simple excuse, we are under siege.
We have to be harsh. The Americans is coming.
Exactly. But in this 6-month window, the shipping lanes are open.
Right.
The diplomats are talking in Geneva. There are no American bombs falling.
And suddenly, the average Iranian citizen looks around and says, okay, we aren't at war. The crisis is on pause.
So what's the excuse now?
Right. So why is my tap water brown? Why is inflation at 40%? Why can't I afford basic groceries?
Exactly. Without an acute external crisis to blame, the regime is forced to own its massive cascading domestic failures.
They have nowhere to hide.
Nowhere. Their entire state apparatus is built to brutally crush sudden, violent uprisings and to respond to immediate foreign threats.
It's a crisis machine.
Right. It is fundamentally not designed to withstand sustained, low-grade, relentless scrutiny from its own population during an extended period of calm.
Normalcy becomes a suffocating weight.
Beautifully put, yes.
It's a fascinating inversion of how we normally think about peace. But the author is also very careful to inject a heavy dose of realism here, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because he isn't suggesting the 6-month window is going to be some utopian trust-building exercise where everyone sits around holding hands.
Far from it. The text offers a blunt, clear-eyed warning. The international community must not romanticize these negotiations.
Zero romance.
Right. Skepticism is completely mandatory. The author explicitly catalogs the regime's grim track record.
Yeah, their history of sponsoring terrorism.
Their deliberate nuclear ambiguity.
And their relentless domestic repression.
There is no assumption of goodwill here whatsoever.
So the negotiations aren't about trusting the regime to change its stripes.
No, not at all.
It's about strategically outmaneuvering them. You are trapping them in a room with their own incompetence.
It is grand strategy operating on a psychological level. By removing the immediate crisis of the block's strait, but keeping the diplomatic pressure cooker sealed through structured talks, you deny the hardliners the fireworks they desperately need to distract the populace.
Fireworks.
Yeah. The text notes that the Iranian people have demonstrated, decade after decade, their deep desire for normalcy, dignity, and accountable governance.
The author writes, quote, they need time, space, and sustained international focus more than they need another round of fireworks.
That line really anchors the whole approach.
It really does. You are giving the internal democracy movement the one vital resource they historically lack.
Time.
A long, stable, predictable window of time to organize their networks, completely free from the chaos of war.
It is a profound paradigm shift. And to fully appreciate the mechanics of this strategic framework, it is incredibly illuminating to zoom out and examine the mind of the author who engineered this blueprint.
Yes, let's talk about Paramendra, because the meta-context of our source material is just wild.
It's fascinating.
When you click around the Barackface blog, you realize very quickly that this isn't just someone who fired off a quick op-ed between meetings.
Oh, definitely not.
The ecosystem of this site is staggering.
Calling it a blog almost undersells it, honestly. It is a massive, meticulously documented archive of thought.
Yeah.
The total page views, are over 5.3 million.
Over 5 million, wow.
And the archives stretch all the way back to October 2004.
That's practically the dawn of the modern internet.
We are talking about over 2 decades of systematic daily writing. In the year 2016 alone, there were over 600 individual posts.
And it isn't just the sheer volume that caught my attention.
Yeah.
The sidebar of the site contains a bibliography of the author's published books.
Oh, the books.
And my jaw genuinely dropped when I read the titles. Let me just list a few of these for you, the listener, to give you a sense of the intellectual range we are dealing with here.
The breadth is truly astonishing.
So you have titles like The Speed Builders, How Humanity Can Deliver Mega Projects in Months, Not Decades.
Mega project.
Then you have Lumina AI, The Trillion-Dollar Sun.
AI architecture.
There's Kelkyism, The Economic and Spiritual Blueprint.
A spiritual blueprint.
He wrote Liquid Computing, The Future of Human-Tech Symbiosis, and Physical AWS. How the Logistics Cloud Will Reshape Global Commerce.
And that is just the nonfiction side.
Wait, there's more.
He also has an extensive list of speculative fiction and sci-fi novels.
You're kidding.
No, titles like The Country of Geniuses, A Race Through AI Adolescence,
Okay.
The Banyan Revolt, Gen Z Kranti, and The Great Subcontinent Uprising.
Right, okay, so here is the question that I immediately stumbled on.
What's that?
You have a guy whose brain is apparently fully occupied writing about trillion-dollar artificial intelligence, global logistics clouds, quantum leaps in biotech, and vast economic spiritual blueprints.
A true futurist.
Exactly. How does a tech futurist and sci-fi author end up writing such a grounded, pragmatic, brutally realistic take on Middle Eastern diplomacy?
It seems like a massive leap.
On the surface, mapping out AI symbiosis and mapping out a truce in the Strait of Hormuz feel like two entirely different skill sets.
They seem disconnected until you look at the underlying architecture required to write those books.
The architecture.
Someone who writes deeply about mega projects in months, or the convergence age, or liquid computing, is at their absolute core a systems thinker.
A systems thinker. Let's define that in this context. What does it mean to apply systems thinking to a geopolitical standoff?
When a traditional political pundit looks at a block strait, sees a localized military incident, and asks a binary question.
Do we bomb the ships or do we retreat?
Exactly. A systems thinker doesn't look at isolated incidents like that.
What do they see?
They look at structural flow, timelines, dependencies, and cascading variables. They view the geopolitical board in multiple dimensions.
So when Paramendry is writing a book like Physical AWS about restructuring global commerce through logistics clouds, he is essentially mastering the art of mapping out incredibly complex, multivariable equations.
Where a delay in one sector impacts the entire globe.
Precisely. And he takes that exact same analytical lens and applies it to the Strait of Hormuz.
He recognizes that the strait isn't just a stretch of water.
It is a massive logistical vulnerability.
Right. And the variables in his equation aren't just warships and missiles.
No.
The variables are global shipping insurance rates, the psychological exhaustion of a repressed population, the economic fragility of a corrupt regime,
The hidden momentum of the diaspora.
the ticking clock of media attention.
That makes total sense. If your entire intellectual framework is built around figuring out how to deliver massive infrastructure mega projects by restructuring timelines, literally the speed builders,
Right.
then of course you're going to look at a diplomatic crisis and say, the solution is found in how we structure the timeline.
2 months plus 2 months plus 2 months.
It is advanced project management applied to geopolitical survival.
Consider the title of one of his AI books, Presagenetics, the technology that lets us watch life think.
Watch life think.
He is clearly fascinated by the underlying mechanics of how complex systems, whether they are biological or technological, process information, adapt, and evolve.
Right.
When he applies that framework to Iran, he is arguing that we need to create the specific environmental conditions, that 6-month window of weaponized normalcy that will allow the organic internal system of the Iranian people to think.
To organize and to ultimately evolve past their current regime. It is essentially social engineering on a macroscopic scale.
It really is.
But rather than imposing change from the outside, it relies entirely on the organic human desire for freedom as the primary engine.
Which is incredibly optimistic about human nature.
Yet completely devoid of naive sentimentality about the regime's brutality.
It is a remarkable balance. Deep skepticism regarding the regime's intentions, paired with profound faith in the mechanics of human organizing and civil resistance.
Wow. We have covered immense ground today, so let's synthesize this.
Good idea.
We started this deep dive looking at a deafening fire alarm, a media landscape in June 2026 that is absolutely screaming about the worst-case scenario in the Strait of Hormuz.
Demanding we prepare for either global economic deadlock or immediate war.
And through the lens of this source material, we have shifted that perspective entirely.
The author has systematically walked us through why we should not only refuse to panic over the frustratingly slow pace of diplomacy, but why we should actively embrace it.
Because the goal of this proposed structured 2+2+2 negotiation isn't just about reopening water for oil tankers.
No, the ultimate goal is buying time.
It is about the deliberate weaponization of delay.
Yes.
It is about providing the Iranian people the 6-month window of normalcy they desperately need to dismantle their own regime from within, completely free from the unifying distraction of a foreign war or a sudden national crisis.
For anyone listening to this, there is a profound practical lesson here in both media literacy and strategic patience.
Okay.
The next time you are scrolling through your newsfeed and you see bold red headlines screaming about diplomatic delays, stalled talks, or frustratingly slow negotiations, your first instinct might be to feel anxious.
Or to demand that someone take immediate action.
Right. But armed with this framework, you might now recognize that what looks like stalling might actually be a highly sophisticated weapon.
Delay, when structured and deliberate, can be the very thing that suffocates tyranny. It fundamentally rewrites how you consume the news. Suddenly, a boring diplomatic stalemate looks like a masterstroke.
It does.
But, as we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final lingering thread here that we haven't pulled on.
Oh.
And honestly, it's been bothering me. It's something for all of us to mull over as we watch this crisis play out in real time over the coming months.
What's the thread?
Well, if Paramendra is right,
Mm.
if prolonged normalcy, slow diplomacy, and the total absence of an external threat are actually the greatest existential dangers to the Iranian regime's survival,
Yeah.
what happens if the hardliners within the IRGC realize this too?
Ah, the counter move.
Right. If a peaceful, boring 6-month negotiation is literally deadlier to their grip on power than an American missile strike, how far might they go to deliberately sabotage the very diplomatic off-ramp that the world is trying to build for them?
That is a terrifying thought.
If the blaring fire alarm is the only thing keeping them in power, what happens when they decide to intentionally set the house on fire themselves just to trigger the crisis they desperately need to survive?
That is the ultimate geopolitical tension. When your entire survival depends on chaos, normalcy becomes your greatest fear.
Something to think about the next time you hear that alarm ringing.